Welcome to Applying Behavioral Science to Accelerate Sales Growth. I'm Jose Bermejo, founder of Predictable Innovation. I've been 16 years doing software, and now I am doing decision-making coaching for executives and also accelerating revenue, because it all comes down to the same thing. It's making decisions. It's how the brain and the mind works. And so we have clear on how do we make decisions. We can help our customers make decisions through the customer journey, which means moving forward into the customer's journey. And so that's basically what we're going to see today. So what are you going to learn today, or hopefully? So first is understand how B2B buyers buy software in 2025 and the behavioral buyer's journey. It's also based on different reports. I'm also teaching today how to capture growth during each step of the journey, because in each step of the journey, the customers are making decisions. So the question is, how do we help the customers, the prospective customers, make decisions, nudge them to move into the next step and get them closer to sales? That's what I'm going to talk about today. And then operational OKRs, for the ones that are not familiar, are objective and key results, because all of this doesn't make any sense if you cannot operationalize, right? So I'm trying here to tie, which is very difficult, by the way, to try strategy into tactics in just one very packed session of 45 minutes. I hope that we can have time for the Q&A. It's the first time I teach this session. This is all based on my frameworks. There are 16 years frameworks, but it's the first time that I teach it this way. So I'm still, learning if there is a lot of stuff packed. So for me, it's going to be also a really, really good feedback session. So the first thing is an overview of what are we going to see today is how is B2B buyers buying. And so when we talk about sales, I like to put it the other way, is how the customers are buying. Because if we are closer to how they buy, we are closer to sale, right? So it's about, again, helping them make decisions. So there are different steps on the journey. And so we have a first step, which is the buyers today, they self-educate on problems, challenges, and industry trends. So they're coworkers, they go to industry events, they search on the internet, they are up to date in social networks, they read press, media, publications, and all of that, right? And so that means they are looking for sources of authority. And so in the step one, there is an authority opportunity to position our brand as an authority or ourselves as an authority, because that's what the customers are doing. We will dig deeper into, this is just a high level. In the step two, we're talking about, okay, so the customers now are discovering solutions. The customers have been self-educating what's going on in the industry. And once they budgets, once the industry and the market matures, once they feel confident and they identify, they are aware of the problem, that's what we call problem aware customer, is when they say, okay, I have a problem, I need a solution, but not before, right? And so in this step two, the buyers are discovering solutions. And so we have an opportunity to position our solution into that, set of, on that market category. We call it market category, which is the set of solutions for a given problem in the mind of the customer. Okay, so here is where positioning comes into play. The third step is, okay, so the buyer now, they have clear a consideration set. They are going through 3-5 different players, and they are going to talk and put together a buying committee. It depends also on the solution. Maybe we're talking about smaller businesses or startups or solopreneurs, of course. Well, it's just a single decision-making unit to make the purchase. But the bigger the companies, the bigger the enterprises, the more the buying committees, right? But the point is that the buyer here starts the solution purchase process. And here is where it comes the sales opportunity. It's like, and here we have different strategies to tackle this. And then there is this action point. Action point number 4, which is where we want to take the customer. It's the buyer agrees on purchase. But then there is more. What I'm coming across is that most of my clients, they want more new customers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But most of them, they are missing the big opportunity that we have as land and expand, because the truth is that, according to Harvard researchers, that existing customers are easier to sell and they're cheaper to sell to than non-existing customers. Why? Because basically they have already crossed 4 different doors. The door of, we will talk about those doors, and all those doors are, building against our solution. The door 1 is how they educate. The door 2 is buyer discovering solutions. The door 3 and the door 4. So once we have helped the customer became our client, we have a lot of trust, among other things. We can be perceived as a low risk vendor, and it's way easier to expand into adjacent markets. So what I always say is, okay, instead of selling 500,000 tickets, trying to get a new customer, you sell 100K ticket. If you have 100 ticket, you put it in 25K ticket, and then you expand. You expand once you have the trust of the customer into step 5 and 6. And so you do a land and expand approach, which is expansion opportunity. And then once the customer is happy, well, we have an opportunity of referral and credibility. There's 2 things. Now, let's dig deeper into all of this. But before we dig into all of this, I want to remind you that I have 2 offers today, which is 120 euros discount in go-to-market power hour session. It's available for the next 48 hours. You can take a photo or with this QR code, and it will open the Calendly, and you can book a session with me for the next couple of days. And I wanted to, to understand where are you at in this journey. So if I ask you, where do you feel that you are more in need of tackling these different opportunities? Step 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take a breath. Let's take 3 minutes to reflect on if we are missing opportunities educating the market, if we are missing opportunities positioning our solution properly, which is step 2. If we are missing opportunities in step 3, which is improving our discovery call, demo, and proposal process. If we are missing opportunities in expansion or in referral and credibility, where in these steps would you say that you have a bigger opportunity of growth? Please drop it in the chat. And welcome to the new people that is joining the session. Thank you so much. So what numbers do we have here? So far, no one is answering. I need to give you a couple of minutes to reflect. Probably by the end of the session, you will have a little bit more understanding of what I mean by all this journey. I guess that we have a 2. Thank you, Lisa. Positioning opportunity. So it's about getting into that consideration set, into that categorization that the customer is making. Nice. Okay, thank you, Lisa. 1, 5, and 6. Fantastic, Jaime. 1 is the buyer self-educates. The 5 and the 6 is in expansion. So you are very, very focused on this, and you are very good at this, I would say. Nice. Okay. It's curious that you complement each other, right? The 2, 1, 5, and 6. By the way, I have another session, which is a free session in Maven for the ones more focused in positioning opportunity, like Lisa. You go to my profile in maven.com, you will see a positioning strategy webinar that actually I taught last week. So, and that is free. You can get it for free. Sure, Lisa. All right. So we move forward. Thank you for your answers. And now, so step 1, the user, the customers, what is happening with the customers? This is the first door that we have to help the customers cross. We have to help the customers cross the door of, and I like do, I'm not gonna draw because something was going on with the iPad. But the point is that we have the customer on one point, and then the customer has, or the prospect has to cross the door of the noise. That door is very dark. There is a lot of stuff in there, right? So what is that door of noise? That door of noise is all the social networks bombarding constantly to all of us. Most of us are just trusting whatever social media is telling us. And then there are hundreds of new softwares every day in platforms like YouTube and review platforms. And so there are so many sources. And you can even, research with ChatGPT, research with Google. So there's so much noise out there. There is so much difficult. So the customers have to take a lot of time to think critically and to distinguish through that noise. And so how do we help the customer to close that door of the noise? And that door of the noise is very close to the problem ignorance. Is they still don't know that they have a problem. So we have to educate them. Well, the point is to build market perception, is to build word of mouth. Is because the customers, and here we have the statistic, What plays the biggest role in determining which vendors you are going to consider? Word of mouth, peer recommendations. They directly call or they ask a peer, right? Or they ask to the industry. So word of mouth is still the top one. And now, how do we develop word of mouth? So to develop word of mouth, this framework, which is called the market infrastructure framework, and this framework basically is the way we see the different layers of a market. A market is basically a perception. It's a perception of how a product solves a problem, and it's built through word of mouth. It's built through a perception of different people. And these people are these players. And there is a pyramid from bottom to top, right? And so the idea is that we're going to help all these people to build the perception. They are going to help us if we build the right perception, if we're tackling the right problem in the industry, if we have the right technology, and they're going to help us build word of mouth. So it's about developing relationships. It's about informing them. And so the information, what we know today is that in the very top of these layers, we have prospective customers, and in the very bottom is us. Now, they are very farther, the customers from us, and that is basically because we have and we want to sell as a provider. And so the customer has not our trust because we are biased towards selling. And so the way to bubble information that is not biased in the mind of the customer, it's through third parties. It's through these third parties that we have here. It's through references in existing customers. It's through partnerships and alliances. It's through complementary suppliers. It's through people in educational institutions and industry associations, are third-party consultants in our industry, the industry analysts like the Gartners, the Forresters, and so on, the research firms, the thought leaders talking about us and about our solution, and of course, journalists also talking about solutions. And so the upper in the layers, the more population there is in those layers. We're just one, but there are many journalists. There are not that much partners, potential partners that we can have, but there are many journalists. But there are also a lot of consultants, right? And so the upper means the closer and the more trust the customer has with them, and then the more volume there is. And so the path of building word of mouth to build that market perception that is going to end up in the mind of the customer is through market relationships, is through building relationships with all these people and showing what our product can solve for the industry, and going into an industry association and give a speech. And so OKRs about market education. So we have two different OKRs. To tackle this authority opportunity, these people are the ones who are going to position ourselves as an authority. We don't position ourselves. These people position in behalf of ourselves, mainly through word of mouth. So if we want to become an authority, we need the help of these people. I mean, I can launch a book, and then I actually have a book. I have a positioning strategy book, but I launch it, I do this self-publishing thing in Amazon, and then crickets. I don't have that authority, but if I want to build the authority, I need to build all of this pyramid for me. And so people start to talk about my book. And so when people start to talk about my book, I have the authority and I will drive clients. And so the same happens with software, this type of services solution, mostly in high ticket. OKRs to operationalize this, what do you have to pay attention to? You have to pay attention to KPIs like ongoing discussion with ecosystem players. Let's say that you have a dedicated person building these relationships. And so how many are they building? I have, for example, a kind of a CRM panel with a pipeline, but instead of sales focus is relationship building focused. And so what I have is I share this content with this person in this partnership. I share this content with this person in this industry association. And then I have a speech in this industry association. The last time I talked to them was 2 weeks ago. So it's like an ongoing way of keeping these people updated. And how do you build authority through them? Is co-author white papers with them. It's contribute with analyst reports, contribute in podcast, publish books, co-publish. It's always better contribute in industry association with presentations and speeches, or the number of mentions or co-authoring or contributions in press, journalist, media, right? So it's a KPI by each of the different layers that are building those market perceptions for you. And also once we build this authority, then what's going to happen is that all of these people talk on our behalf to the customers, and then the customers say, hey, yeah, I understand that, this is a problem in the industry and that these people are the ones who know about this problem. And so we move the customer from step 1 to step 2. They have to make the decision. They have to cross the door of the noise and then cross the door of problem skepticism. It's like, I don't have a problem. They have to see clear they have a problem. And so that's the first door we have to help them close. And now step 2, the buyer discover solutions. In the buyer discover solutions, we have to help the customer cross the dark door of skepticism. It's like, okay, they jump into our website, is next step, because someone told them about us. They are searching for solutions, and they're going to say, is this product worth considering or spend my time, right? Because then you have the call to action. It's like book a demo or freemium or POC, whatever it is your call to action in your website or your first step in your sales closing process, right? And so what we know today is that building the consideration set. So what is the consideration set? Is in this research, it's a very recent research by Winter, I think it was out 3 weeks ago. They said that most of the decisions are made with 3 software vendors in the consideration set. And then, so they are just going to consider 3 vendors. If we are lucky, they are going to consider 5 vendors. But they are most of the time spending the time researching by themselves. So we have to be very clear in our website and educating very, very well on what we do, how we do it, and all of that, which is basically positioning. And so here is when we need magnetic messaging. We need in our website and in our content strategy a messaging that clearly states what does our product service replace. Because we are replacing that means that we are solving a pain. What pain do we solve? What is it for? How is it better than the replacement? Why is it so urgent to buy for you? How our product works? What are the forces playing against us? And we will talk about that below. Now, to help the customer cross this door, we have to pay attention to these KPIs. Do you have a positioning platform that is reflected in our messaging? It's like, do you clearly are helping the customer understand how do we compare with alternatives? And alternatives are not just products. Also, maybe they are services and maybe they are behaviors. Most of the times are behaviors. And then that is when most of friction we can have, because changing behaviors is very, very hard. I mean, you're changing the workflow of an end user, your product is hard to sell, right? And so how are you going to solve that you are telling the customer, hey, I'm going to change your workflow, right? And so it should be very, very worthwhile that me as an end user and me as a buyer, I want to get into your solution because you're going to change my day-to-day approach, my workflow, my behaviors. And so you need all of this checklist is very, very clear in your website, who you sell, what does your product service replace, what is it for, how is it better, how does your product work, and what are the forces objection handling that we call it on sales. And then here you can pay a look at the number of conversions. Define, of course, what conversions mean for you. Is it a trial, or is it a book a call, discovery call, or is it a demo, or is it a POC? Right? Okay. And this is a very important statistic. The buyer self-educates. So by the time they talk to sales, they already have been meeting, they already are familiar with you as a vendor. And so that means that, one, you need to develop this, because if you're not here, you're missing the 91% of that customer journey, because talking to sales is just the 9% of their time. And number two, you have to be very, very clear in your website with all of this and all of your educational assets, because otherwise you're missing the 91% of the time spent by the customer buying new customers. Okay. Now, if we help the customer get you into the consideration set, it's like, okay, cross this door of skepticism. Is this vendor worth to consider? Then we enter into that consideration process is when it rises the sales opportunity. And then here we have to help the customer cross the door of trust. The customer would ask themselves, do we trust them enough with our money and with my job position? Do they know enough about our industry and our problem? And so here is where I always like to say, and I'm going to talk about this low risk framework, which is my signature framework. Sales is a game of perceptions in which the lowest risk proposal and the lowest risk vendor wins. Probably you've heard that nobody has been ever being fired by hiring IBM, right? That basically it's a metaphor of how most of the people, 85% of the people, based on the Division of Innovations studies, make decisions based on risk, not on the reward. So most of the people that I came across, most of the software and services vendors that I'm helping, they are focusing a lot on position the reward, which is fantastic. But once you get into talking about sales, the game is the opposite, is to reduce the risk perception, because it's a risk versus reward game. You can have the biggest reward, but if the risk is too high, then you're not going to move forward. They are not going to buy from you. So the lowest risk proposal and vendor is the one who wins the game. And so this stat says invest in your sales pitch. 85%, 83% of the buyers will get a demo. And so here I wanted to talk to you about also two things. It's also about fitting with the identity, which is what we have in the brain, is who we believe we are. I identify, identity is like Jose is an athlete, it's a sales closer, is a founder, and I would do all these routines every day, and I love to do my MBAs and all these educational things, and I love to coach and don't stop learning how behaviors things and all of that. So and then that builds a worldview, and that builds, it's also based on my own limiting beliefs. And so depending on what I want and my identity, I can make purchasing decisions in two different ways. There are different groups, right? I will tell you about the 4 different groups and kind of more identities. But when it comes to the sales pitch, my experience is that with 2 different sales pitches, it's okay. And it's going to depend on how you approach the market, on what your technology. If you are creating a new market and a disruptive technology, you're selling to visionaries, to visionary identities. If you are more crossing into the mainstream, which means you're solving a problem and you have identified the audience and the use case of that problem, means that you are more selling to skeptical and pragmatist identities, which are more driven by fear. The visionaries, on the opposite, they are driven by rewards. And so in one type of sales pitch is all about rewards, and in another is more like about driving that trust and low risk perception. And so, for example, in these 2 types of sales pitches in your sales deck, we have 2. The visionary story approach is for new technologies. It's difficult to match within widely adopted product categories, and it's technologies that require big behavioral changes to be implemented, the so-called disruptive technologies. And that is when we approach it as futuristic or disruptive sales pitch. And we're talking about that vision of how the world is changing. Okay, this is the new economy. This is happening in the world. This is the new future that we are picturing. And now there will be losers and winners. Do you want to be a winner or a loser? Now, so that triggers FOMO, fear missing out, into visionaries, which is roughly 16, 20% of the population. So this pitch is going to work for just a small piece of the population, but it must fit also with your technology. You cannot do an skeptical and pragmatic pitch if your technology is not still developed to solve a specific problem. If you still have, let's say, an algorithm, you are selling an algorithm or a technological capability, not a product. So you have to use the futuristic and disruptive storytelling and sales pitch. But then when you want to cross to mainstream, when you have identified a combination of use cases, pain points, and problems to solve for a specific audience, is when you want to go and to appeal to a more mainstream market, to 80% of potential buyers, which are skeptical and pragmatists. They are run by fear. And we will keep digging deep into the next stage. And so for that type of customers, it's a problem solver story approach. And in that problem solver story approach, it's more like this one here. It's like we start with a market insight to get the room to agree. Okay, do we all agree that this is a market insight? First, if you talk about the market insight, imagine this is a speech about ARC, which is I help them. It's a technology that it competes versus SharePoint, and it's a software to store big blobs. and extract them from SharePoint. And so the storage is cheaper. And so we identified that the best to win and to grow was architecture, because they have a lot of different blobs and they were overusing Microsoft SharePoint. And so now we say 80% of the engineering architecture will break SharePoint in 2 years because of overusing. So what is telling to the customer without telling is, one, I know about your industry, I know about architecture without telling you that I know. It's just you are inferring it, right? I'm giving you a market insight nobody else knows, which is coming from my expertise. So I am very expert in this problem. I'm telling you this. You're inferring it. And then, this is the problem. And then the customer will say, oh, okay, tell me more, right? And so you catch the attention of the customer. And so then you go into this insider problem. Okay, here's the problem, right? Stating the problem, you're teaching insights that just you have in your industry. Nobody else has about the problem. And that is the aha moment. And so once you get the client into aha moment, this is skeptics and pragmatists, then that skepticism and pragmatism is disarmed. Mostly the skepticism. Still, you are not in the pragmatist side, but the skepticism is disarmed through this aha moment. And now you talk about transparent differentiation, which is, okay, these are my competitors, and this includes your current behaviors, this includes in-house building of your software, this includes this other software. The point is that with your research, with your insight, with your knowledge of the industry, you know that every time someone is implementing one of those solutions, they are raising new pain points. And now you position your solution, the one that solves the pain points that other solutions are raising. And so you don't talk about differentiation at all. The customer is going to make the differentiation on their own heads. But what is more important, you're informing them on how to make a decision is, hey, you're looking for a vendor. These are the vendors and these are your options. That builds a dramatic trust. That is because you are is kind of a trusted advisor at this stage. And so you're starting to disarm the pragmatism at this stage. Because it's like, I don't care if I don't get business. I care about you. And because I care about you, these are all the solutions. And we're competing with all these folks. And they will say, these folks, this vendor, they truly care. And then you move forward and you connect with your solution. Okay, this is a segment-specific solution. And it's when you start pitching, not pitching your solution, but you picture for them a better future versus all the alternative solutions. They, right now, can see how this is unique. And then is when you drive them through the demo, because you have, warmed them up to disarm the skepticism and to disarm that pragmatism. OKRs that you have to pay attention here. A product that solves, and you have to have a product that solves an aggravating urgent pain point. And remember, must-have versus nice-to-have features. Position it as a must-have. You need discovery questions for your sales pitch to understand the customer in depth. You need a sales pitch that fits the customer identity and your positioning. And that means you can take two routes. The futuristic route, which is going to appeal approximately at 20% of the population, or the problem-solving route, which is appealing to skepticism and the mainstream market. And then you're going to need, and I would pay attention to your discovery call, to demo, to win rates. So those are two different KPIs. Is how much of the people entering into the discovery calls I am moving into demo stage, and how much of the demo stage I am moving into the win rate, right? And then if the win rate is not good enough, it's because of the proposal. If the discovery to them is not good enough, it's because of the pitch. And so you have a diagnose on what's going on. And then the average cycles then. Here again, more about my offer. So you can take just a photo of this. Then during one of my calls, so $120 discounted, but we're in step 4. And so step 4 is very, very important, is move to close. And so we are only in the room. They have a decision-making committee, and they have the CFO, the champion, the end user champion, the decision maker, right? Which is or like the leader, the CXO, or the middle manager. And they are all thinking, what if? Now they are anticipating the risk of failure. If this fails, they're going to fire me. If the users, they have to change their behaviors, they are going to complain. If they complain a lot, I don't want noise into my bosses. If this is costing a lot of money, I can be fired. If it's all the barrel of the ifs, those are all the objections. Most of the objections are not coming up in your cells. But fortunately, with my model, we've been anticipating a lot of objections based on the identity. It's what they call identity-based sales or low risk-based selling. And so because I said the perception of value is based on the formula risk versus reward. Okay. Now let me show you the next model. It's a guide. I think it's this one. Yes. But can you see my screen or you see it black? Is it okay? Okay. So this is my website. And here you go down predictableinnovation.com, predictableinnovation.com. How buyers decide. And so these are the 4 identities. Actually, there are 5, but the 5th is what they call the laggards in the diffusion of innovation model. And I'm not putting them here because it's more for super mature markets. So most probably you're going to face any of these 4 different identities. And so here we know what they buy, how they evaluate, and what they evaluate. And so now we can anticipate those risks and address them beforehand in our proposal. So that is the magic of this model. And so if we want to appeal to the 20% of the market, that futuristic early adopter, they are either innovation enthusiasts that want to change in society through technology, or they are visionary leaders. And what they want is scarce technology with proven but expected exceptional results. They are looking at the benefits. And so these 2, they are looking just at the benefits. And so you can go on how they evaluate. What is the importance of the rewards for them? For them, it's very important, the rewards. So they are looking at the rewards. They are evaluating, looking at the technology, the scientific base of the technology, how leading edge it is, how disruptive it is, how unique it is, what's the performance of the technology, and what are the long-term possibilities and impact into the society. They are looking at the future, right? But they are just 2.5% of the buyers based on the studies of the diffusion of innovations. The risk tolerance is very high, very, very high. And now then we have the visionary leaders. They are 13.5% of buyers. And so together they are 16, okay, which are the risk takers. So they give, again, a high importance to the reward, but they have a high risk tolerance, which means their value drivers are more like the use cases that they can solve, the features and the capabilities that we can have, technological capabilities. But mostly here you have everything. You can take a screenshot or you can go to the website and you can browse this. But the most important thing for these guys is they want a competitive advantage. And so they want an advantage over the competition. And in their identity, because they are leaders, what they want basically is a promotion. They are be well known in the market. It's like, hey, I'm an achiever here. And so to be an achiever, I take risks. And I am ahead of the crowd, spending money in new softwares and new technologies and new services, no one else. And that's the way I gain visibility. I am an achiever and I get promotions in my job. So that's the identity. Thank you, Jaime, sorry. And so then we move into the pragmatists and the managers. They are very similar, but now is when they don't look that much about the rewards. Actually, the managers, they look, the conservative managers and the business pragmatists, they look more to the rewards, but they all look at the risks. And here is where with this formula, you have to think about this because they are anticipating the risks of what's going to happen if they trust you as a vendor and as a solution. And so the risks they anticipate are, hey, is this user experience familiar for my end user? Something that can be embedded in their workflow? How much training and support do they need? Are you providing a complementary service of training and support? So I avoid this risk. How are you integrating with the end user workflow? Because maybe, you can have a very nice user interface, but maybe you are too disruptive for the end user workflow. I don't want that much disruption, right? How do you integrate with my tech stack? Again, about disruption with their current stack and workflow. Do you have industry-specific use cases? When you have industry-specific use cases, that triggers authority bias. It means that the customer thinks that you are an authority in your industry, and so automatically you gain more trust on them. And so just because they think you have that knowledge, that is going to reduce the risk perception of going with you. Is this an existing category? What is an existing category? It's an existing category of product. Because if you don't have competition, that means in the mind of the customer, this is something very new. And that means risk triggering. That is flight, fly, or freeze response in their brains for these pragmatist buyers. For the 80% of the people, they're going to freeze, fly, or fight. And they're going to say, hey, this is not for me, we will wait. And so competition is actually good when we're in mainstream because it validates a market category. It's telling the customer, hey, this is not something new. People is starting to adopt it. There are some solutions. There are no solutions. That is too risky for the majority of the people and the buyers. And then short time to value. And so short time to value is, hey, is your POC or demo, how much time is the customer spending in between they purchase to the time they see the value? And the value in their own terms, not in your terms. Maybe the value is return on investment. Maybe the value it's in other intangibles through your user interface. Whatever the value is for the customer, it's very related with the capability of your product, and that is also goes together with sales cycles. And so the shorter the time to value, the shorter your sales cycles, and then you shorten your sales cycles. It's better to sell a product that through POC has 1 month or 2 weeks of time to value, and it's 25K versus a product that's 100K and 6 months of time to value, because the other one is too risky. And so by reducing the risk perception, you are helping the customer to make the decision of buying from you. And then once they are in the POC, then you talk about the big numbers, because then you help them cross that door of trust, of uncertainty, of fear, right? Of working with you. Okay. Now let's get back to the notes. I'm sorry because we're gonna run out of time. Definitely I said this was something new and it's too much package in one session. So yeah, good learning for me. So yeah, the lowest risk proposal wins. And so you go through all those items and then you ask yourself, do we have a way of providing support, trial before commitment or POC in the proposal? Yes or no? Are we showcasing or showing logos of partnerships? Yes or no? Are we providing a team that is, so that checklist in my website is what you have to go through and double check with your proposal. And then so you have to have items of all of that to reduce the risk perception in the mind of the customer, okay? So OKRs for this is the risk reward balance for the identity profile of the buyer. So go through all of those profiles, understand how they buy on my website. And then once you build a proposal, think, okay, they're seeking reward or they are seeking more reduced risk, reducing risk this way and providing reward this way, right? So think about that risk reward balance and have this no-brainer offer with a low time to value, with a short time span to realize the value, and with a low ticket entry. Then have risk reversing warranties. It's like, okay, if we don't achieve this promise, we're going to, whatever it is, give you free consultation for 3 months. We work for free until the implementation finish. We're going to give the money back, whatever that risk reduction warranty is. And that works really, really well. And now we're going into the 3 next steps, which are very straightforward and basically is the end user adoption. It's expansion opportunities. So once you have sold, the customer has bought, they have decided to buy. It's not you have sold, they have decided to buy, they have decided to go with you, they trusted you. And so you started the implementation of the software. And so now you have the end customer, the end user. It's not anymore the buyer, it's the end user. Cross the dark door of workflow integration, behavioral change, because it's going to have an impact on how they work. You're solving that pain point, but you are introducing a slightly friction by solving that pain point. And so the point here is to take the of the end user, and then 5 and 6, they go hand by hand. You package your solution in a way that it's not, let's say, it doesn't look like it's a lot of effort for the end user to adopt. And I'm going to give you an example of Microsoft. And so Microsoft was very smart. They are very smart, but specifically when they launched Office 365. So I remember I was launching Office 365 for a Microsoft consulting company. And so the incentives of Microsoft for clients were, okay, we exchange in the cloud. We have Office, Word, PowerPoint, and all of that in the cloud. And then we're going to launch Yammer by that time, and now Teams and all those communication things. But they would say, hey, the incentives are to migrate. They were so smart. Why? Because they know that the most aggravating problem for admins, which is, by the way, the buyer of Office 365, is the gatekeeper, because they make the decisions of the systems. The most aggravating problem, because it was very noisy by that time, it was the email. I remember I was managing emails prior to be this type of consultant. I was managing Exchange. And there was a big pain point, because every time the email would fail, the CEO of the company would complain. And so it's something that it just has to work, but if it doesn't work, IT gets pointed. So IT, it's like, no, we have to remove, this risk of the CEO pointing us out. And so we move it to Office 365, because if Office 365 fails, it's Microsoft, it's not us. And then Microsoft is giving us all these warranties. And so Microsoft incentivized that. And so people started to move the clients, these organizations, they started to move all their emails to Exchange. And so once you have email moved, it's way so easy to convince people to say, okay, now your software, your Office, your PowerPoint, all of this, move also to the cloud. Now that you know that the cloud works, that is not failing, that is solving problems, that is so much easy to use, and the end user is not complaining. Now let's try with the next. And so that is a new package. They charge more for that package, right? And so through adoption, you design a packaging strategy that is based on the adoption cycles of the client. And that's how you land and expand into your customer. You don't try to sell a big ticket and try to sell Office 365 big. Well, nowadays, yes, but no, when you're starting. You start with the most aggravating problem. And once you land, you expand. And then once you expand into Office, then you sell Teams, right? And so you go little by little and you follow the natural behavior progress of the customer. And so the opportunity number 7 is customers incentivized to talk positively. So it's make the customer happy and then ask them for referrals actively. Send them emails. Hey, can you reference someone now that you have realized the value of our product? Send them emails. Ask them for testimonials. Ask them for case studies and make them build them together, right? And so I don't have time today, but I have a GPT that gives you feedback on your proposal to increase closing rates based on my low risk proposal model, all of those, different identity frameworks that I share with you, the risk reward formula, the different risk types, an no-brainer offer, the cognitive biases that you may be triggering in your proposal, and the potential of your proposal to trigger fear, flight, and freeze, and flight and run response, right? And so this GPT, you will upload the proposal and it will give feedback on how to adjust the proposal based on all my frameworks, behavioral science frameworks, to improve your closing rates. We don't have time for this today, but if you're interested, email me to jose@predictableinnovation.com. Here is the email, jose@predictableinnovation.com. And then last reminder about the perk by joining this session, which includes 2 weeks of support in Slack, Telegram, or more than support, is coaching, is guidance on revenue acceleration. And so regularly my sessions are $500 1 hour, and this one is $380 for the next 48 hours. And then we can work on your proposal on each step of the journey, on how to build all of these steps or one concrete step. We will be hands-on working on one concrete step, and before the session, you will receive a preparation form. So I can prepare for you, and then we can be very, very executive during that session. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with me till the end. And I hope you've learned a lot. You will receive the recording in the next couple of days. And if you would like to have my help, please, reach out to that email or book one of the discounted sessions. I would love to help you all. Thank you so much. Talk soon.